Why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, now hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step.
Welcome to RBTV's Game of the Week, as your Riverside Brookfield basketball team will look to face off against the formidable Percy Julian Jaguars in the season opener of the Bill Vandermeert Thanksgiving Classic. The Percy Julian Jaguars posted a formidable and impressive 23-6 record last year, so they'll definitely be the team to beat in this tournament, save for some other teams we might mention later. RB will be looking for their first championship win in this tournament since 2018 after losing in last year's final to Brother Rice. We'll start off our pregame coverage with a recap of last season, and it was a very successful one, going 26-5 and 6-0 in conference. Liam, how impressive was last team's squad?
You know, last team's squad was probably the best one that we had while we were in high school. We had a 7-footer in Stefan Cicic, who was really the Zach Edey of our team. He was a very consistent player, and he's actually over at Tulane, just getting a couple minutes in there. He was a great player for our team. We actually ended up winning the Metro Suburban Conference, which only consisted of 4 teams in Westmont, Ridgewood, and Elmwood Park. But now we are in a way bigger conference, so it's going to be a lot more competition. But this is the place to be for the Bulldogs, right here in the Dog Pound. They are 14-1 last year at home.
Yeah, RB definitely had some trouble at neutral sites in other tournaments, but RB were notoriously good at home, so it's important that they pick up a key win here in their season opener at the Dog Pound. This will be a crucial game. They were also 5-0 away. It was literally just in those neutral sites at Evergreen Park, at home with Flossmoor, and other locations where they did not come up as successful. It was a 7-4 neutral record overall. And they finished with ranked 66th in Illinois, finishing 35th in 3A, one of the most tough divisions, I'd say, over maybe even 4A, as you had the likes of Morris Johnson and Cooper Koch. Some very tough names in there. Finished 44th in the Chicagoland area overall as well.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's head over to Julian's squad. Julian also had a very successful season, going 23-6 last year. They also had a 15-3 record at home. You know, it's kind of a repeating pattern we're seeing with these high school teams is the environment they play in. But don't let that disregard their 7-2 away record. This game, hopefully, in the hopes of Julian, it shouldn't mean much to them as a big away game. They went 9-0 in the Chicago Public Blue South Conference, which is not a strong division whatsoever, but still an impressive record to put up. Many schools in this conference are academic prep or military prep institutions, such as Chicago Military Academy, Air Force Academy, Good STEM Academy, Epic Academy, and Excel Academic of South Shore.
Yeah, definitely, as you could say, some sort of Mickey Mouse opponents, you could say. I mean, they had a 91-33 win against Chicago Military Academy, 62-25 win against Air Force. None of these games were really close. They even had a forfeit win against Good STEM Academy. So as you can see, there could be a little bit of fraudulence involved in their overall record. But we were talking with some RB players pregame, and they were saying that this is a good team, namely because of their height. They have a 6'7" guard/forward in Cameron Marlowe, who will be a player to look out for in this game. So, Julian, they will have some confidence going to this game with, like you said, a 23-6 record as well.
Yeah, for sure. And when we keep recapping that last season, they were in the 2A division, so obviously their rankings are going to be a little bit lower than the Bulldogs were. They were 327th in Illinois, which seems pretty low, which probably is pretty low. They were 87th ranked in 2A and 183rd in Chicago. Obviously, when you look at their record, it kind of seems fitting that with the teams they played, their ranking shouldn't be that high. But, like you said, we were talking with the guys on the team, and they said that this should be a good challenge for the Bulldogs to open their season.
Yeah, absolutely, and looking at their schedule as well, the only real point of reference we have between RB and Julian is Leo High School, as this was the only game that both teams had in common of playing. Julian lost in the first round of the playoffs last year, 45-39, very low-scoring affair, to Leo. Meanwhile, RB last year beat Leo 62-54. So that should be some encouraging news for RB fans, but it should be worth noting that this is a completely different roster. The team has undergone a complete transformation, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And let's keep talking about the good news for the Bulldogs, as we're going to recap some of their bigger wins from last year. And, of course, the most notable, as some have seen probably anywhere on all social medias, was the big 50-49 win against Ignatius in the Chicago Elite Classic at UIC, where Danny Loftus hit the game-winning three-point shot while RB was down 49-47.
Yeah, who could forget? Almost a year ago to this day, on November 25th, Danny Loftus, down 4-9-47, clutch game-winning three-point shot that absolutely sealed the deal in that tournament for them. It was right after coming back from a tough loss against Brother Rice, losing 76-62. So it was great for them to overcome some adversity there and really show who they are and how they can handle in their tough spirit. It was definitely a statement win, like we said, and they also had some very tough competition in that game. They played against Northwestern commit Phoenix Gill, as well as Miami defensive lineman Justin Scott, who is now balling out in college football.
Yeah, for sure. And this is honestly a great sight to see when Julian has the guys like Cameron Marlowe that bring big height. It shows that we're able to overcome adversity against bigger players like Justin Scott, who was a star on the football field and on the basketball court. We were able to push through and get a win over them, which shows that even a higher ranked Ignatius was a great competition for us, or great competitor for the Bulldogs, While Julian is ranked a little bit lower, I think the Bulldogs really have what it takes with good coaching over here with Coach Ryan Gruber to overcome this big adversity. But the bigger reason that we won that game was because we out-rebounded them. We were out-rebounded by them at 28-35, which is a stat that you don't like to see when we have a big 7-footer in the paint.
Yeah, and we also lost a turnover battle 2-8 in steals. Not great. But the biggest thing, the most notable thing, and this will be a recurring theme in our pregame coverage, is that they got blown out at the free throw line. Absolutely abysmal. They only shot 20% from the line. Meanwhile, St. Ignatius went 83%. These are free shots that you should be making, and it's a little alarming, and we hope that RB can turn it around this season, as that will be a big factor. But then moving on to their game against Lincoln Park, in which they won 70-63. This was a very good Lincoln Park team from last year. They were 21-10 on the season. This win occurred on January 5th. Lincoln Park ended up finishing third in conference at 6-3, one spot above Whitney Young, only for Whitney Young to get their revenge later on in the regional finals, winning 63-45. But overall, a very formidable team in that high school. This was a tournament game, another one. This was the Hyde Park New Year Classic, and Stefan Cicic had 4 ruthless blocks in this game, while Lincoln Park had goose eggs. They had 0 total blocks in this game.
Yeah.
And the win for this one was because they shot the lights out.
Exactly. I was just about to say, this is what we need from the Bulldogs, is the field goal percentage, the three-point percentage, and most importantly, that free throw percentage that we just recently talked about. We shot 57 from the field goal, a great overall percentage, and we shot 50 from the three-point, which is even better as a team, and which is shocking to say the least from looking at last season's stats, was the 68% free throw percentage compared to Lincoln Park's 56%.
Yeah, and then one of the more memorable games of the season, maybe the most memorable, was their 63-59 barn burner win against Fenwick. And I'll tell you, I've never seen the dog pound packed on a 4 p.m. on a Saturday night more than that game on January 20th last year. Fenwick was 18-11. They had an okay season. As we can see right now, they're actually dominating Hinsdale South behind us. Hinsdale South without the likes of Jack Wegas, a star player for them, who's now transferred to Brother Rice. But regardless, Fenwick were pretty sensational last year. They had Nate Marshall in the paint. So that was a primetime matchup for all fantasy. A 5-star Auburn defensive lineman commit Nate Marshall versus our D1 Tulane commit Stefan Cicic. Stefan Cicic ended up winning the battle, as Nate Marshall only ended up with 5 points. Yeah,
of course. And the thing that made this game a thriller was it went to OT. And crucial turnovers for Fenwick is kind of what threw away the game for them. They made a couple of clutch knockdown threes from Stephen Brown, including the one that sealed the game, making it 58-55. I just think this was honestly one of the best games for the Bulldogs of the year because of the environment that they played in, and especially being able to shut down a star player like Nate Marshall.
Absolutely, and they had many more impressive wins in their 26-win season, such as wins against Oak Lawn 68-64, as well as a rivalry win against LT 68-60. But we will now briefly touch on some of their losses, which hopefully they can look to learn and build on going into this season. All 5 of their losses, very few amount, came to really respectable, quality opponents with winning records, notoriously with very successful basketball programs, and such as Brother Rice, as well as Palatine, Hillcrest, De La Salle, and Simeon, who they have ended up losing to in the playoffs. So overall, we hope that RB can build on these wins, or on these losses rather, and look to improve their free throw percentage as well, which is a big factor in why they lost.
Yeah, for sure. And now we want to rotate over to not just the key losses in games, but some key losses in players. A guy that you've heard us talk about more than often on this show was Stefan Cicic, which is probably the biggest loss of the season.
Absolutely. And now we will turn it over to our interview with Henry Jurgens, who had just interviewed Mike Reingruber, head coach, recently before the game. Take it down to him at the baseline. Thank you, Henry. And we'll now segue to a Media Day edit of the RBHS boys basketball team that was taken for Riverside Brookfield's Fall-Winter Media Day. But before that, we will begin with some more coverage, and we'll go back to what we were talking about earlier with some of RB's key losses in players.
Yeah, for sure. Where I left off was Stefan Cicic. That man was pretty much the Bulldogs' offense and mostly their defense too. He surpassed 500 points last year, putting up 581 points in the season. Shot 65.2% from the field goal. He had 58 total blocks, and most importantly was voted second team All-State.
Yes, and like you did mention, though, he was the Zach Edey of the Bulldog offense, which had its pluses and its minuses, as he was absolutely dominant in the paint. Scooped up every loose ball, got every single rebound, big impact scorer. He averaged around 20 for this team, but the problem was he went 0 for 8 beyond the arc at the three-point line. Absolutely abysmal, but you don't really need your big center shooting those kind of shots, so it wasn't all that big of a worry for RB.
Yeah, for sure. And a guy that was shooting those shots was Stephen Brown, a 2-year varsity starter for the Bulldogs, who shot 36.4 from three. He had a 66.7% two-point field goals and surpassed 300 points, almost hit the 400-point mark, putting up 393 points last season, which was the second highest on the team.
Yeah, he was just a very gritty guy, got all the work done defensively as well. He had some of the best defensive stats on the team for a player in his position. A shocking amount of rebounds as well. Excuse me there for the buzzer behind us. But absolutely phenomenal player. It's unfortunate, though, that his career ended off in the way that it did against Simeon, as he did go 0 for 11 at the line, which some will say may have costed them that game. But nonetheless, a great player, impact player for this RB squad last year.
Yeah, for sure. A common occurrence we saw last year was the free throw percentage, as we talked about almost the whole show. He shot an abysmal 49.1% around the whole season total, and most of that came from that last game. But now we're finally going to send it over to our Media Day edit, or we're not going to do that. Again, we're going to talk about Makai Austin. That's who we're talking about. He was a transfer for OPRF from last season, a big, reliable guard who brought energy to this team.
Yeah, and what a transfer he was. He had the most amount of games played and the most amount of minutes played on the team, with a total of a lot of minutes played. We'll pull up that stat later. But, yeah, he had 31 games played, which tied Stefan for the most on the team. Brought fire to the Bulldog squad, shot 37.3% from the three, and he shot 47.4% from the field goal range. So, overall, great player. Really great on the fast break as well. A lot of steals he registered. Great player for RB overall.
Yeah, for sure. And third time's a charm here. We're going to send it down to our Media Day edit from this past week, from our Winter Sports Media Day.
And now we will take it back with our courtside coverage, as we will now talk more specifically about the players of this team and some strategies heading into this game. But we'll start off with some of RB's new faces, as there are a lot of them. There are only 5 returning varsity players from last year's squad, being that there are 10 new players in this roster, either being brought up from JV or being transferred in, such as Josh Arce from Morton. But 2 impact players that we should mention tonight, as they will be starting, is junior Ben Biskupik and junior Colin Cimino.
Yeah, for sure. Those are 2 guys that we can expect to see in the lineup tonight, with junior Cameron Mercer, who was supposed to be out for this game, and I believe is deemed questionable at the moment. He has been suffering with a sickness, which obviously we hope he feels better. But this is two really big games, two big first games for Colin and Ben Biskupic, two guys to look out for on the season.
Yeah, Ben Biskupic will definitely be the hustle guy of this team. I believe he'll operate in the forward position, power forward. He is 6'1", so lacking some height, which could be a problem because we know that there is a lot of height on this Percy Julian roster. But yeah, he's a hustler kind of game style. He will hound down that loose ball. Very gritty player that will get the work done on defense, which is what they need.
Yeah, exactly. These are two big guys in Colin Cimino, at least. Ben Biskupic's less big in height, but he's a big feisty player that is needed on this Bulldog team.
Big in stature for sure as well.
Yes, for sure. A guy that you can kind of sub in for a player like Makai Austin last year, who was just a guy for all energy, will get the dirty ball, will do anything he can to get possession. A much needed guy on this team.
Yeah, Colin Cimino, 6'5" wing. He plays for Team Breakaway for his club basketball, a team that Danny Loftus formerly played for. And we'll talk about Danny Loftus and Vince Stockendorf coming up. Some of these more skilled players that Ben Biskupic and Colin Cimino will do the dirty work for, allowing for these players to shine in their roles. But now I think let's head into Keohane's keys, where he will break down some of his key strategies for this game.
Yeah, for sure. Today I got 3 keys for you guys. And the first one has been the talk of the show. We are beyond desperate need. We are in desperate need to upgrade our free throw percentage today. Last year's total was a despicable 68.8% at the line. And when you look at that, our returners are Cameron Mercer, who is questionable for today, who actually shot the best at the line for the Bulldogs. He was 64 for 81 with a recorded 79% at the line. And then you get to Danny Loftus, who shot 57.3 from the line. Vince Dockendorf, who shot 50%, and Montas Salinas, who was 63.7%. With those last two, Vince and Montas obviously will cut them some slack. They shot a little less free throws than Danny and Cam had on their backs due to the starting factors in those two. But it's something that can easily let games slip away. This can easily sneak up on them and be a costly stat, as it was against their game against Hillcrest last year, where they lost by 6 with plenty of fouls to make up for it. Yeah, for sure. And my next one is working the new offense/systems. We obviously, us two aren't sure. We're not with the team, but obviously we're going to have to be playing some new basketball around here. We don't have our 2-year varsity starter, Stefan Cicic, anymore. We have a 6'6" Montas Salinas stepping in, which is a pretty drastic drop-off from 7 feet tall. Not that Montas doesn't have the height, he's just not as tall. So the Dogs need to confidently work these systems and stick to them. While this could be a little bit different of an in-game look for the last year's starters, it's something that they can't make up on the fly. They got to stick to what they've done in practice, and this should be a good game for them to practice this in a good Julian team. And my last one is play small ball. While the height isn't there, small ball is a big way to contribute without height. If you're unfamiliar with small ball, it's a system in which you run with majority smaller heighted teams. They use agility, quickness, and versatility to outrun and outplay these big man style offenses like we ran last year. And some notable teams that have run this for 5 years, the Golden State Warriors ran this from 2014 to 2019 and called this their death lineup. And if you know anything about Golden State, this was their dynasty years. They didn't need their big man. And an even more notable team was the Houston Rockets in the 2019 and 2020 season, where PJ Tucker, standing at a whopping 6'5", which is a pretty average height for the NBA team, he was their tallest man on their roster, playing as the big man. I think this could be a really good system to work with 6'6" Montas Salinas to be able to move the ball around to their shorter players like Vince Dockendorf, who stands in around 5'10", and he's an agile guy that fits perfectly into small ball.
And with that being said, I think it's absolutely useful. This system could definitely work in their favor, especially in IHSA basketball. So we actually interviewed head coach of Homer Flossmoor, who won the state championship last year, head coach Jameer Dismukes, who said that he will also utilize this type of format as well with his team, as his team is also lacking some height with former big man Mac Hagemaster out, as he has now graduated and gone on to college. So they have a very young team, new players that will be in the rotation, a lot of freshmen. So they will be playing the small ball like RB as well. And if Homer Flossmoor, a team known for perennial success, can do it, so can we. And now we will get into my picks to click for this game. And I have 2 big X-Factor players, both of them being seniors, that will play pretty important roles in my eyes. The first one is Danny Loftus, who will be playing at the 2 in this game. He's the only returning senior that was a starter the year prior, so he'll have a big influence on this team. Will definitely certainly be a leader in this offense. He played 29 games, and he averaged, I believe it was 696 total minutes, which was fourth most on the team from last year, both in minutes and in games played. On offense, he had some pretty impressive stats. We'll get into them. He had the third lowest turnover percentage on the team behind Stefan Cicic and Cam Mercer, which is pretty impressive considering that Stefan Cicic should have a lower turnover percentage, considering he's a big man center, not a guard like Danny's position, where it's much easier to turn over the ball, making more riskier passes and facilitating the play. He had the second highest field goal percentage and 2 field goal percentage among starting 5, only behind Cicic once again. But once again, Cicic has the easy putbacks, has the easy lays, easy looks overall underneath the rim. So very impressive stat for Danny to be able to get it done from beyond the arc, carrying it all the way down and getting those looks. Mid-range, free throw, and three-point. Overall, very good stuff. But he will look to improve his three-point percentage and free throw percentage from last year. He went 4 for 17 and 23.5 from beyond the arc around the perimeter, which was the lowest behind Stefan, who, like we mentioned, went 0 for 8. And from the free throw, he went 51 for 89, which was 57.3%. 57.3%, not exactly that great, but it was only a little bit below average of the team because the team overall did not shoot that very well. So we had 225 total points, averaging 7.8 points per game. And we can expect these numbers to inflate as he will definitely take a bigger role in this year's offense at the 2. Like we said, he is the most experienced player at the varsity level on this team, so expect that number to go way up. He's also the third highest assister, not afraid of swinging the rock over to some of his teammates, and we can expect that to definitely come into play tonight as he will most likely work in tandem with Vince Stockendorf, who is my second pick to pick. These guys have been best friends all their lives, and I'm sure we'll see that chemistry on the court tonight. Vince is a very shifty point guard. He's very known to shoot the 3 ball. We call him the red arrow because of his red hair. The fact that he's a sharpshooter, light green arrow. And he has the second most amount of games played among the 5 returning seniors, besides, of course, Danny Loftus, who in his numbers is 25 games played. He and Montas Slanis, we can expect to have the biggest improvement in roles and minutes. Vince saw only 297 total minutes, and Montas only saw a whopping 161. So we can expect these numbers to shoot way up, as well as their points per game. Vince only averaged 1.7, which was more than the player in front of him on the depth chart, who was Sam Shelvin, who also played 63 more minutes than him. Some other offensive stats are that he shot 28% from the field, going 14 for 50. And get a little of this as well. He shot 4 times more three-point shots than field goals all around, especially from the 2. He went 4 for 10 in 2 field goals and went 10 for 40 from beyond the arc at the 3-point range. So he will look at also, that's something in and of itself. And then talking about free throws, the downfall of what it seems to be almost every player on this team besides Cam Mercer, he will look to improve as he went 50% from the line, going 4 for 8 on the season, which we can expect that number to go up as once again because he will definitely get more looks at the line as he gets more involved and he gets more minutes. On defense, he had 25 total rebounds, which is impressive considering his small height. And he had a really impressive assist-to-turnover ratio, one of the best on the team actually, having 21 assists to 14 turnovers, which is a 1.5 ratio. Also, it's worth mentioning, both are really smart with their fouls. Vince had 29 total offensive fouls and only 16 total defensive fouls. Danny also had a very good foul percentage. So overall, watch out for these guys, both on offense and defense. And we can also expect a lot of fluidity, as Vince was telling me earlier that these positions between both Colin, Ben, and Danny, and even Cam will be rotating a lot as they all are around the same height, which is noteworthy as well in this game.
Yeah, for sure. Some very wise words there. I'll cut you off, give you a break. As we're going to get cut off here, we're going to take it into our pre-recorded coach's interview with Henry Jurgens and the head coach, Mike Rangler.
How do you rely on veteran players on your team to win these big games?
You rely heavily on your veterans. The more experience you have, generally the better you are. We have 2 returning starters in Danny Loftus and Cameron Mercer, and a couple other guys in Vince Stockendorf, Montas Slanis, that saw significant minutes last year. So we're relying on all those guys to be our leaders, to show the newcomers the ropes, and when you have experience like Danny and Cam, especially playing in huge games, it makes it it a lot easier to rely on them.
Yeah, another follow-up to that. Cameron Mercer has been sick these past couple of days. How will he have limited minutes, and how will that affect your team in this game?
Yeah, well, obviously Cam's not going to start, but Cam is like the Energizer Bunny. I expect him to kind of come in and be all right. If he's struggling physically from his health, obviously he won't play as much, but when he gets in there, if he's feeling good, he'll play.
Yeah.
In addition to that, though, we have other guys that are ready to step up and take those minutes and contribute, in his absence.
Thank you so much, Henry Jurgens, taking the time out of your day, and especially to Coach Mike Ryan Gruber for taking time out of his game day for that interview. As I have one last thing to state, as behind us, you may not be able to see, is Cam Mercer dressed up and in gear. Hopefully, he could be a needed asset for the game today.
The son of Ron Mercer, a former blue blood for Kentucky, as well as a star player for the Chicago Bulls. A lot of athletic talent in that family, so hopefully we can see him suit up. Like we said, his free throw percentage was the best last year, so he will definitely be needed on the court today. But with that, that will conclude our pregame coverage of Pregame at the Dog Pound. We'll send it over back into the studio as we'll take it away from us here at the court side. So from that, so long, and tune in to RBTV at 7 o'clock as we are T-minus 30 minutes away from tip-off.